right. Well, we're live, and this is the 7 o'clock talk. Huh. We have a background.
I don't know why.
It just must be set up that way. And tonight we're going to talk about this is going to be one in a series of us talking about the types of patients that we see that we help the most and like the quickest.
We look spooky.
I know you had a hole in you. And so when we look at these types of patients, and I call them patient archetypes, some people call them patient patterns, but it's just like you see this patient and you're talking to them and their stories being told, and you can start to tell what's happening with them. And so tonight we're going to talk about the burned out patient. So if this sounds like you, just know that there's help out there for you. And we would absolutely love to help you, but we're going to talk about the burned out patient. And when we're talking about the burned out patient, this person is generally wired and tired. They generally wake up slow. They need a cup or two or 20 of coffee. And they just, once they get going, they do all right. But that getting going is tough for them.
Well, let's tell them about like what that definition is. So they usually have a high stress work environment or home. They aren't sleeping well, whether that be falling asleep, staying asleep, or quality of sleep. Anxious and or depressed, and they're not getting adequate nutrition, whether that be they're not eating enough or the food that they're eating is not quality food.
And the things that you listen to these people for, because typically a lot of people tell us my blood work is fine. My blood work is okay. My doctor told me it's okay. But then they will tell us, oh, hey, I get up 2 or 3 or 4 times at night to go pee. Or they tell us that, let me think about this.
Well, and so the reason why getting up in the middle of the night to go pee, that is not a normal part of the aging process. Just because you're getting older does not mean your bladder got any smaller.
If anything, it gets bigger.
You should be able to stay asleep all night and hold your urine, unless you're drinking gallons of water right before you go to bed.
Yep. And so this person's blood work typically looks medically normal, but what we see when we look at optimums with this is we will typically start to see that their blood sugar is a little out of whack. Their insulin levels are a little high, not medically high, because medically high, if you look at an insulin, it is from 2 to 26, and that is way too big a range. You're alive in that range, but insulin causes funky things to happen when it's high, and it stays high. If iron could be low, today, as we were dealing with this type of a patient, his alkaline phosphatase was low, so he was having issues with zinc. If you're a guy and you have other symptoms, so when you're talking about patients like this, patients rarely fit into one bucket. Generally, you will have some of these symptoms and some of these symptoms. And so this person also has a little bit of benign prostatic hypertrophy. That patient also gets up to go 3 to 4 times a night. And so we know that these things aren't normal. And when we look at the hormones.
Okay, you just told them a big word, but you didn't tell them what that is. And most people probably don't know.
Hold on. I don't know why somebody is calling me. We just got lost. So which big word?
Hypertrophy.
Hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Benign prostatic hypertrophy affects guys because
It's an enlarged prostate.
it's the prostate gland gets large, and so these patients have issues with not being able to completely urinate.
Well, can't initiate urination very well, and it's like
Weak streamed.
pushing, trying to push taking a water balloon and trying to push it through a coffee stirrer instead of a straw.
And so these types of patients that are burnout, typically, if you look at their cortisol curve, it's on the lower side. They don't have cortisol to get them going. But then towards the end of the day, it can be high. And so the patient starts out slow, but as the day goes on, they generally typically have a little more energy. Some people can never just get it going, and they're drinking Monsters or they're drinking coffee all day long. And that's just to keep themselves going. But their hormones are almost always tanked. If you're a guy, your DHEAS is low, your testosterone is low, your estrogens
they're most likely high because they either are shunting their testosterones into their estrogens because of stress, which
they're
burned out, they're stressed, and they're not making their testosterone. So they usually have extremely low testosterone levels and very high estrogens, all three usually.
So we're talking about labs, and we're talking about things that we see. The things that you feel are tired. You feel like you lack motivation. You can be anxious. You can be depressed.
Inability to lose weight.
Yep.
GI symptoms.
Oh yeah, you could be having diarrhea one time and constipation the next. That leads into the microbiome. When I do a microbiome test, or I should say we do a microbiome test on somebody, typically they tend to be a little more pro-inflammatory. People who are burned out, and because their hormones are typically off, they have joint pain. So, there's a lot of different things that affects this person. And so there is hope for you to get out of this. And it's it's not complicated. It's not even really hard, because we've done this tons of times now. But it does take a little work, and it takes a little preparation. So let me see what our notes are here. We covered the hormones: low testosterone, low DHEAS, pregnenolone. That pregnenolone has a lot to do with the urination.
Progesterone.
Or progesterone, not pregnenolone is the mother hormone that flows down into all of these things. But I look at her because she has like the magic touch with sleep and urination with progesterone. It's actually quite amazing. And so we covered the anxiety. We covered, what are the other symptoms? You were talking about thin hair.
So most of the women come in and they talk about their skin, nail, and hair. They're dry, they're brittle, they're thin. They don't feel vibrant. They have a low libido. They might have dark circles under their eyes. They just don't feel like themselves. Men come in, and these men will have thicker midsections. They feel weak or tired, complain of back pains, low libido, no energy, tired.
And so there's lots of different ways to address those things. And typically the way that we help people is by addressing the hormones first and the neurotransmitters. Because if you are tired and you lack energy and you lack the motivation to feel better and do better, it's really hard to help yourself. You really don't want to help yourself. And so those are the first things we work on. And typically people in those first few weeks when we're working on these things really they feel better, most importantly. And then after they feel better and they have their energy, they want to know how good they can feel. And that's when we go from just getting you to feeling better to optimizing things. And we look at the microbiome and we start to tweak it. And we look at the organic acids and we see where there are issues. But those are the things, that's that archetype. That's the patient that we've now seen hundreds of that come in and, doc, I'm just tired. I just can't get going. I lack motivation. We start to do the testing and we give them guidance. We help them with an elimination diet to start to figure out the things that are hurting them. And we give them some supplements and off to the races they go. And it is as simple as that. The good thing is you can either spend decades and decades of reading, and have you ever felt like, oh my God, everything's either bad for you or everything's good for you? Or what's the next superfood? Or what's the next insert magic pill or potion here? It's not that. You don't have to worry about that. It's setting your lifestyle up the way that we're supposed to be living. And then you just feel great and you feel like doing things and you have your life back and you have your family back and you can play with your children and your grandchildren. That's just what we do. And I'm happy to say that we have lots of patients. Go to our website and look at our patient testimonials. You can see it there. So I think that's our burned out archetype. We will have another archetype next week. And if you have questions, you can always type them into here and we will see them. You can hit us up on Facebook. You can email us, drmiller@integratedhealthofindiana.com, Mrs. Indiana Backdoc @gmail.com. We're here to help. This is what we do. And we want to help you. We wouldn't be doctors and nurses if we didn't want to help. With that being said, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and have a wonderful holidays coming up. Merry Christmas. We'll see you. Love you. Have a great night. Oh, Libby's coming in for the kill.